And good afternoon. You're listening to Ken Hudnall. This is the Ken Hudnall Show. Coming to you from our studios right here in exciting El Paso, Texas. Gateway to the Old West and the most haunted city in the country. Well, today is October the 30th, 303rd day of the year. Just 62 days remain to this year's over with, and we get to go do it again. It's National Candy Corn Day. You know, as fall approaches, of course, you can find candy corn everywhere. National Text Your Ex Day. I don't recommend that. National Checklist Day. National Publicist Day. National Wicked Day. Mine Rescue Day. You know, dedicated folks delving into the depths exhibit extraordinary courage in safeguarding lives beneath the earth's embrace. Create a Great Funeral Day. Speak Up for Service Day. National Uplift Somebody Day. World Audio Drama Day. Mischief Night. It's an evening when the usual rules take a back seat. Certain parts of the U.S. and Canada and the U.K., kids and teens go out after dark armed with toilet paper and eggs and a sense of adventure. They soap windows, toss rolls of toilet paper into trees, and ring doorbells before vanishing into the night. It's not about causing harm. It's about the thrill of harmless pranks and the laughter that follows. This is different than Halloween, offering a space for playful antics without the costumes or the candy. And of course, if you get caught, you may get your ear end whipped. National Bandana Day. Haunted Refrigerator Night. Now, the eerie ritual of purging forgotten food, a spooky pre-Halloween tradition that transformed the fridge's ghostly abyss into something useful. Adoptee Remembrance Day. Pushcar Camel Fair. It's a colorful event held annually in the desert town of Pushkar, Rajasthan. It's a unique celebration brings together thousands of visitors, both local and international, to witness a spectacle like no other. This fair is known for its lively atmosphere, featuring everything from camel races and beauty contests to traditional music and dance performances. Also holds a deep cultural significance. It serves as a gathering point for local communities to come to trade livestock and celebrate their heritage. That's one place I don't think I've ever been. The Baku Jazz Festival. It's a annual celebration that fills the street of Azerbaijan's capital with vibrant sounds and rhythms. Attracts jazz enthusiasts from around the world with a diverse lineup of both renowned and emerging artists. You never know who you're going to meet at one of these. Pomegranate Festival, Shampoo Week, Global Media and Information Literacy Week, Artis Mundi, Truffle Days in Croatia, Red Ribbon Week, and Bat Appreciation Week. Famous people born on this date: John Adams, Ivanka Trump, Henry Winkler from Happy Days. Well, let's see what stories we got in the news today. There's always something going on. President Trump has secured a fentanyl crackdown in farm purchases from China. He's ending the China tariff after Xi signals a tougher fentanyl enforcement and a rare earth pause. He's going to cut the tariffs on Chinese imports after a highly anticipated meeting with the Chinese president in South Korea. Cites a new understanding on fentanyl enforcement and farm trade and a pause on rare earth export limits. Meeting took place in the city of Busan, marked the final stop of Trump's Asia trip, also included stops in Malaysia and Japan, and focused on cooling the economic standoff between Washington and Beijing. Well, far-left podcast host who laughed as activists cheered Charlie Kirk's murder has become a liberal media darling. Podcast star Jennifer Welch has become a liberal media darling as a recent commentary has generated intense backlash from the right. She's co-host of I've Had It podcast, went viral this week for comments she made on her politically charged spinoff, iHip News, where she's seen laughing at a clip showing a No Kings protester saying she was glad conservative activist Charlie Kirk was assassinated. On her podcast, she said, "Listen up, Democratic establishment. You can either jump on board with this S or We're going to go to you in the same way we came after MAGA, period. We'll see how long she lasts. Kamala Harris called out by a reporter in an intense interview for a world-class pivot to avoid questions about Biden. She's traveled extensively to promote her book, 107 Days, describing her short-lived run for the presidency. She faced an intense interview with Australian Broadcasting Corporation's Sarah Ferguson, who pressed her not only about her future political aspirations, but her record as former President Biden's running mate. Biden's mental acuity and ability to serve are topics that put Biden and his allies in the spotlight, leading many to ask questions Democrats want to know the answers to. Why nobody said anything? Ferguson asked Harris, didn't you have a responsibility? You were one of the people in the room. Didn't you have a responsibility as an American to step up and say something at that point? She said very clearly, I did not question Joe Biden's capacity to be president at all. After all, he was smart enough to choose her. Well, DHS has called out an NBC affiliate for hiding an illegal immigrant crime history and an arrest story. Department of Homeland Security did some pushback Wednesday at a local NBC News affiliate's report on an arrested illegal immigrant in California. Well, that story just vanished. There we go. According to the family's Ring camera, 42-year-old Gerardo, who lived in San Jose, was leaving for work. He got it in his black truck at 7:45 in the morning, about to head out to his construction job, when a lot of folks who appeared to be federal officers approached his truck and yelled for him to get out. His wife, Adelia, who says she's a U.S. citizen, ran to the truck to try to stop the arrest. And a woman, not in uniform, hit her 22-year-old daughter with a baton, she said. Now, this wasn't caught on the Ring camera, coincidentally. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin wrote on X that the local affiliate didn't report the full details of the arrested suspect. Of course, NBC News refuses to tell the American public this illegal alien from Mexico has a rap sheet that includes lewd and lascivious acts with a child, battery of a spouse, domestic battery, compensation for prostitution, felony entry after removal. But that's okay, just a couple of oversights on his part. Hollywood producer sentenced in a women's deaths, also accused of rape by an officer who died helping others. This Hollywood producer was sentenced Wednesday for the death of two women who were drugged and dumped at Los Angeles hospitals, also previously accused by a deceased police officer of rape. Lauren Craven, 25, of La Mesa, California, one of 7 women who said David Pierce raped him. Revelation came in court as Pierce got a 146 years sentence for the 2021 deaths of model Christy Giles, 24, and Hilda Marcelo Cabrera Zazola, 26. Craven was struck and killed by a vehicle last week. She tried to help people trapped in an overturned car on a freeway. Well, the Turning Point table flipper threatened Trump as part of his rant. He was arrested by feds after being fired from his teaching assistant job. This former teaching assistant was fired by Illinois State University, arrested in a joint operation by FBI and Secret Service agents on Tuesday. Derek Lopez, 27, been charged with threatening President Trump, according to the Bureau. That arrest followed a 2-month-long investigation coordinated with the agencies, which also included the Illinois State University Police Department. It's regarding his online and in-person activities. He's alleged to have recently made threats against the sitting president, which prompted the current federal charges. He's caught on video turning over a table of a Turning Point USA display. Well, ex-LSU coach Ado Orgeron expresses interest in returning to the Tigers after Brian Kelly's been fired. He said he's just a phone call away. He wants to be the next head football coach. He has a national championship ring with the Tigers and said in a recent interview that he'd love to put on the purple and gold once more. Well, a hidden medieval hall has been discovered underneath a world-famous university as archaeologists sift through the remains. The scientists recently unearthed the remains of a multiple academic hall at Oxford University, revealing new insights into the lives of students during the Middle Ages. Archaeologists have been excavating the grounds of Hertford College, a constituent college of Oxford University, since 2024. That's part of a construction project for a new library. And these finds were showcased during an open day at the college in September. During the excavation, archaeologists uncovered the remains of the back parts of 3 medieval halls: Hart Hall, Black Hall, and Cady Hall. They all predated the 1874 founding of Hertford College. Since Hart Hall was created in 1280s, excavations yielded medieval finds. Michael Douglas has revealed his daughter. Catherine Zeta's daughter borrowed her 20-year-old vintage dress for a New York City gala. The daughter's name is Cara Zeta Douglas. Zeta Jones's look-alike daughter, 22, posed on the red carpet in her lace-accented black dress. That's a dress the movie star wore 20 years ago to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She was joined by her father, Michael Douglas. Well, Elliker Kirk has delivered a raw, faith-filled tribute to her late husband at Ole Miss. She said she slept on his side of the bed, made her feel closer to him. She walked onto the stage, University of Mississippi, Wednesday night to a packed house for her first Turning Point USA campus appearance since the murder of her husband. She said it's hard not to cry. She said of the video tribute that played before she took the microphone. She said, I hadn't seen that video. It's happened since the day of the murder. Being on campus right now for me is a spiritual reclaiming of territory. A lot of symbolism in today. It's Wednesday, 7 weeks and more that I'm coming to grips with the permanency of this nightmare. Well, Trump's lawsuits moved to Iowa State Court. He successfully got his lawsuit against Iowa pollster Zayan Seltzer and the Des Moines Register to land in Iowa State Court last week with a good strategy by his legal team. That's according to attorney Danny Carone. It's accused the defendants of brazen election interference with their final 2024 Iowa presidential poll that showed him trailing Kamala Harris. They originally requested the case be moved to Iowa State Court in May after the defendants removed the case to federal court. Federal judge denied the request at the time, but the Obama-appointed judge was overruled by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 8th Circuit on Friday. Now, Prince Andrew's jealousy of Kate Middleton's royal success has fueled the rift with Prince William, according to experts. Middleton's rise in popularity as a beloved member of the British royal family may have intensified tensions between Prince William and his embattled uncle, Prince Andrew. Scandal-ridden Andrew, once known as the late Queen Elizabeth II's favorite son, has become increasingly jealous of the mother of three's growing influence as a relatable royal who prioritizes family. The feud, according to British royal experts Hilary Fordrich, started primarily due to Andrew's jealousy and resulting disparaging remarks he made regarding Kate Middleton. Well, in the finger pointing, Hannity came out and said the Democrats are the ones holding the country hostage with this shutdown. Well, the French crown jewels are still missing, though 5 more have been arrested in the Louvre heist investigation. The jewels are worth more than $102 million and still can't be found. Police carried out the arrests in separate operations across Paris and neighboring areas, including the Seine-Saint-Denis region. That's according to prosecutor Laurie Vacua. Identities of suspects haven't been released yet. One of the newly arrested suspects is suspected of being part of the 4-person team that stormed the Louvre's Apollo Gallery in broad daylight October 19th. Stole the jewels valued at over 88 million euros, that's $102 million, in less than 8 minutes. Well, The Trump administration revoked the approval of 13 Mexican airline routes to the U.S. According to Secretary of Treasury Sean Duffy, Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg were too weak to stand up to Mexico. And Mexico, they said, illegally canceled and froze U.S. carrier flights for 3 years without consequences. And now they're going to be consequences. Well, police say they're tired of Democratic cities spending billions of dollars on illegal aliens over the police. A police group says that law enforcement in Democratic-run cities and states across the country are tired of seeing local politicians supporting illegal immigrants rather than attempting to address key issues they're dealing with, such as being understaffed and underfunded. New York City alone was projected to spend more than $8.9 billion on illegal migrants in 2024 and 2025, according to the Fiscal Policy Institute. According to the report, that funding went toward housing and support for illegal immigrants. Illinois Policy Institute estimated that state spent $2.5 billion on care for illegal immigrants since 2021. Most of that cost went into health care and cost vastly exceeding initial estimates, the institute claimed. In 2022 and 2023 alone, Chicago spent about $255 million on costs for illegal immigrants, such as housing and food and clothing and other care. That's according to the Chicago Sun-Times. Well, GOP lawmakers are pushing back on the Trump administration's plan to import Argentinian beef. They warn expanded imports undermine American cattle producers. Ex-FBI agent says the Bureau used internal probes to punish whistleblowers. They've got a long-standing pattern of using its internal review process to dissuade whistleblowers, according to a former FBI special agent. What started in 2021 as a workplace conflict for Special Agent Valentin Fertitta snowballed into a years-long dispute when Fertitta escalated concerns about his treatment, his wife said. Emily Fertitta, also served in the Bureau under the Biden administration, believes that's emblematic of the larger problem. Very simple equal employment opportunity case has grown into this huge whistleblower case that has implications for everybody. She says national security retaliation is huge for so many whistleblowers. Well, an Alzheimer's pill could reduce brain decline in some high-risk patients. An experimental pill could slow memory loss and brain shrinkage in some Alzheimer's patients, according to new research. It's called ALZ-801, shown to be effective in people who have early Alzheimer's disease, and 2 copies of the APOE4 gene, which also increases Alzheimer's risk by 10 times. I want to make everybody aware about a scam that I found out about yesterday. I got a copy of an invoice supposedly sent by my bank that through the Zelle program, I was sending $249 to somebody I never heard about. I called the bank. They said there was nothing on their end, but Zelle is a payment program, and apparently a lot of scammers out of China are using it to transfer a whole lot of money out of American bank accounts. Well, New Jersey Democrat breaks ranks to support Republican Jack Ciattarelli for governor. He's breaking with his party to throw his support behind the Republican. Councilman Jeff Lewis of Branchville says his party's nominee is not cut out for the job. She hadn't done anything to enthuse me, he said on American Reports. The endorsement comes as major Democratic figures line up to support their nominee, including former President Barack Obama, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Now, that's a trio that's guaranteed you're going to win if they support you. Because remember, nobody, even today, dares question Barack Obama. Well, Pakistan has threatened to obliterate the Taliban after peace talks fall apart. The Taliban controls Afghanistan. And they were Pakistan and Afghanistan were in negotiations toward a lasting peace between the two countries, and it fell apart. Peace talks wrapped up in Istanbul, Turkey, without a workable solution, according to Pakistan Information Minister Adatullah Tarara. This comes after deadly clashes this month. Dozens were killed along the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and the worst violence in the area since the Taliban took control of Kabul in 2021, as a gift from Joe Biden, I might add. Well, off-camera hearings for Charlie Kirk's suspected assassin, raising warnings from legal experts. Utah judge's decision to hold repeated off-camera hearings for the man accused of assassinating the Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk is drawing warnings from legal experts who say that move sacrifices transparency in one of the state's most high-profile cases. Tyler Robinson, 22 years old, was accused of shooting the 31-year-old father of two as he delivered remarks during an event at Utah Valley University last month. But the suspect hadn't been seen publicly since the initial court appearance after his arrest. According to Randolph Rice, a Maryland attorney and legal analyst, if the public can't see who's speaking in the courtroom, that's a serious transparency issue. Our justice system depends on open proceedings, and the public needs to know the person who's answering the questions is the same person who's accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk. But we've done everything possible to protect that young man. And President Trump has leverage to stop the Sudan killings as satellite images reveal mass deaths, according to Yale researchers. New satellite images show what appear to be bloodstains on the sand and bodies strewn across El Fasher, North Darfur, Sudan, amid reports of mass killings by rapid support forces in the war-torn region. Yale University's Humanitarian Research Lab published the images Tuesday in a new report after ceasefire talks with that country faltered in Washington and after the rapid support forces entered El Fasher on Sunday. Yes, Yale is, of course, going to come down on the side of anything on the left. Vice President Vance has slammed modern liberalism as a perverted Christianity at a TPUSA tribute speech. And finally, Democratic governor's staffer's been fired after authorities found 21 kilos of cocaine in a drug operation in the state office building, no less. This is an aide to Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey, arrested for cocaine trafficking after investigators intercepted packages with the drugs slated to be delivered to the state office building where he worked. Lamar Cook, 45, of Springfield, pleaded not guilty during his arraignment Wednesday, ordered held without bail pending a court hearing. Well, going back to our topic of conspiracies and secrets, been a lot of discussion about subliminal messages and advertising. Influencing people without them realizing it as the promise and the fear behind subliminal messages. Some advertisers use them to push products. Others believe governments or secret groups slip them into media to sway opinions and shape consumer habits, even alter beliefs. Alongside subliminal tactics, there's the idea of hidden codes, such as secret messages or ciphers in everyday items, official documents, or even in public art. Question becomes, could these codes be from ancient secret societies, or are they modern ways to pass instructions without the public noticing? We're going to look at what subliminal message is supposed to be, whether they really work, and how this idea grew so powerful. We're going to see how people look for these hidden codes in various places, like on currency and in famous paintings and city layouts, believing there's a deeper layer to daily life. While skeptics argue that these claims are exaggerated or unproven, the fascination with unseen forces remains strong. So I want to explore these topics. So the first question is, what is a subliminal message? Subliminal, of course, means below the threshold of conscious awareness. Subliminal message is any signal, image, or phrase that's shown so briefly or so faintly that you don't consciously register it, but it might affect thinking at a subconscious level. For instance, there's a single frame with the word buy fast into a film. It might be too quick for the eye to catch, but the brain is going to record it. And some folks claim this can nudge people to purchase items or form certain opinions. The In the James Vickery Theater study in the 1950s, Vickery claimed that he inserted messages like drink Coca-Cola and hungry, eat popcorn into a movie at a cinema. According to him, sales of those items rose significantly, caused a stir with the public and the media, worried the minds are being controlled without their permission. Of course, he later admitted to fabricating and exaggerating the results. However, I did see one report about it where these messages popped up on the screen, and during the intermission, the popcorn stand couldn't handle the business. And then, of course, there's public fear and regulation. The possibility of brainwashing through hidden advertising led to debates about banning subliminal ads. Some countries passed rules or guidelines about it, even though Vickery's study turned out to be weakly supported. Concept stuck in the public consciousness. You know, a lot of scientists have tested whether quick flashes or mask images can shift attitudes. Some experiments show small effects, such as influencing a person's choice between two snacks if one snack's name is flashed subliminally. But these effects are usually short-lived and require very controlled conditions. Conspiracy believers see any effect as proof that subtle mental manipulation is real. The skeptics say the real-world impact is very tiny compared to the hype. Then, of course, we have subliminal messages in music and film. That's something in the 80s called backward masking. Some religious groups claimed rock songs had hidden messages when played backward, telling people to commit sinful acts such as suicide. Bands like Led Zeppelin and Judas Priest and others at the center of these accusations. Courts examined the cases, finding that any backward words often sounded like gibberish and might be coincidental. I remember there was a lot of hype about the so-called Paul is Dead in a Beatles song. Supposedly, when it played back, you could hear it very clearly saying Paul is dead. Well, there have been frame inserts in movies. Flashing a brand name or a phrase into one or two frames is rarely used today for ads due to legal and ethical concerns. But conspiracy theorists think large studios or secret groups might embed them for political, ideological reasons. In practice, modern marketing rarely uses such direct subliminal because it's widely considered ineffective. Now, the fear is that subliminal messages can override free will and shape big decisions. Academic consensus suggests that while subconscious cues can prime thoughts or feelings slightly, they don't lead to absolute control or major behavioral changes. People are influenced by a lot of factors, it's found. Culture, personal preferences, past experiences, so a split-second phrase isn't likely to drastically alter a person's choices. However, the notion that we could be manipulated without knowing remains a concern, driving ongoing suspicion of the media. Now, there's a number of reasons that people believe in all this. Number one is a basic distrust of advertising. Advertising already pushes people to buy things. Subliminal messaging is seen as the next step, crossing a line into unethical territory. Then we got a fear of hidden agendas. If governments or powerful groups want to persuade the public, inserting unnoticeable images or words might be more effective than open propaganda. And of course, the idea that a single flash can implant an idea is both dramatic and alarming, making for attention-grabbing stories. And some individuals swear they felt urges or noticed changes in mood after seeing certain videos or hearing certain songs. One of the stories I've heard is the advertising of sex and ice cubes. There's a well-known rumor that claims that ads sometimes embed the letters sex and ice cubes are in the shapes of background images to arouse attention subconsciously. While there are questionable ad designs out there, it's not clear whether the final images are deliberate or accidental patterns. Then we got political campaigns. Some conspiracies say campaigns use subliminal techniques like quickly showing an opponent's face with negative words. Officially, these tactics are rare and discouraged, and if discovered, they do create scandals. Another area where the claim that certain logos use negative space or illusions to hide words. Conspiracy believers see it as a method of covert persuasion. Designers often say these are artistic flourishes, not hidden mind control signals. And those who doubt the broader impact of subliminal messages point to the fleeting nature of subconscious cues. They say to have a consistent effect, messages have to be repeated or reinforced in a more direct way. They also note that people's conscious decisions, social environment, and personal taste matter more than a quick hidden flash on a screen. And overall, psychologists remain cautious in concluding that subliminal messages can steer entire populations. But at the same time, the concept endures, and conspiracies echoing concerns we may not fully control our own thoughts. And then, of course, there are stories of hidden codes. That could be anything from ciphers and old manuscripts to encoded references and brand slogans. They might be placed deliberately or arise from chance patterns. Conspiracy-minded individuals often look at these codes in official documents and architecture and everyday products, believing they reveal secret knowledge or hidden instructions. There are a number of historical examples. For example, the Voynich manuscript. That's a mysterious illustrated book from medieval times written in an unknown script. Some folks think it hides ancient knowledge or instructions for secret societies. Scholars suspect it's either a cipher or an invented language, but nobody has definitively cracked it as of yet. People examine works by Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo for cryptic symbols, suggesting they inserted messages about religion, science, or hidden teachings. And while it's true Renaissance artists trace symbolic elements in art, claims of major conspiracies do remain unconfirmed at this point. Now, there's a number of modern instances. The U.S. dollar bill, for example, has long been said to bear Illuminati or Masonic symbols like the pyramid with the eye. Officially, these are references to the nation's ideals in the eye of providence. But a lot of folks see deeper meaning, pointing to Latin phrases in the shape of the Great Seal. Then there's barcodes and QR codes. Some conspiracy fans claim barcodes or QR codes encode messages or the number of the beast. Standard interpretation, they're just ways to track products. But the repeated patterns of stripes or squares can actually spark occult speculation. And then, of course, we have corporate design. As with subliminal messages, certain logos or brand names might incorporate hidden references, whether mythic or occult ideas. People debate if a designer used them intentionally, if it's just purely aesthetic. Throughout history, codes serve practical purposes, hiding military plans, securing trade secrets, or enabling secret communications. Groups like the Freemasons or other fraternities use symbolic imagery to identify members and keep rituals private. Difference is that conspiracy believers think these codes appear in the public sphere to boost control or further an agenda. For example, some argue that a certain design in a city's layout, like Washington, D.C., is shaped to form Masonic symbols. Historians say these patterns can be coincidental or relate to the personal taste of the planners. Some of the examples of alleged hidden codes. Disney films. Some watchers claim Disney animators slip adult references or coded shapes into kids' movies. Occasionally, small jokes or rumored images have been found. But the official stance is that most are unintentional allusions or a few pranks by rogue artists. Then we got musical lyrics. Fans sometimes find acoustics or letter patterns in lyrics. If you take the first letter of each line, it might just spell the secret word. In a lot of cases, this is done as a play for an Easter egg or a creative flourish, not a grand conspiracy. And then there's street grids and monuments. Certain city designs are rumored to form pentagrams, owls, or other occult shapes when viewed from above. Creators might have done so on purpose, or it might just be the geometry of roads and circles. Of course, interpretation varies widely. So why do the hidden code claims endure? Well, there's first human pattern recognition. Our brain loves to spot shapes and connections. Epiphania and pareidolia lead us to see meaning in random data. And there's mystery and control, of course. Hidden codes imply somebody else has secret knowledge and power. People who don't trust mainstream explanations may assume these codes prove that powerful insiders communicate behind closed doors. And in the conspiracy mindset, if a design or a text might be interpreted in multiple ways, a suspicious interpretation is often chosen. And historically, codes and ciphers truly have been used by spies and secret societies and clandestine groups. Finding them in modern times can feel like uncovering lost secrets, even if the messages might not be as grand as some might imagine. Sometimes hidden codes serve as innocent function, like watermarks on documents or subtle design choices to prevent counterfeiting. Other times they can be Easter eggs or private jokes by artists. While conspiracy theories expand these simple facts into major illusions of global control, it's also true secrecy is an age-old tactic. The line between real hidden messages like coded intelligence and imaginative leaps like seeing random patterns in city maps can be blurred. And both subliminal messages and hidden codes revolve around the idea of an unseen layer shaping perceptions. They suggest a small group or entity can quietly direct mass thought or keep critical information away from the public. Some conspiracies blend the two notions, saying that text or images are coded with instructions and that these instructions are delivered in a subliminal way. Music videos, for instance, might contain cryptic images that go by quickly, acting as both a hidden code and a subliminal suggestion. And this all ties back to a greater unease about manipulation, whether it's commercial, political, or something more sinister. Critics say this unease can become paranoia, leading people to see conspiracies everywhere. Believers counter that it only seems paranoid until a genuine hidden message is exposed. And history does show that covert persuasion and coded communication do exist, though usually at smaller scales and grand conspiracy purposes. Tension between possibility and probability keeps the topic open-ended. And of course, it makes for great discussion. Well, there's another conspiracy that's generated a lot of conversation. Fluoride in the water and GMO mind control. Well, society's always debated the safety of what we consume. And water is our most basic need, and the food we eat fuels our bodies. But some conspiracies claim that hidden agendas or substances of the water and genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, might control the mind, reduce resistance, or even harm health. We're going to cover two controversial topics now: fluoride added to drinking water and genetically modified crops. Some folks see these as public health measures or progress in farming science, and others fear they're tools for massization or deeper manipulation. So we're going to see how these ideas took control, what evidence is presented, and why critics often push back. In many countries, small amounts of fluoride are added to public water supplies to help prevent tooth decay. Supporters note fluoride strengthens tooth enamel and reduces cavities, particularly in children. It's considered one of the major public health achievements of the 20th century in places where it's practiced. But from the start, where it's been practiced, water fluoridation has faced suspicion where groups who saw it as forced medication or an extreme view as a method of controlling the population. In the 1950s, some Americans claimed that fluoridation was a communist plot to weaken the country's resolve. Hollywood films and certain political figures played on that fear that chemicals in the water would make citizens passive or more open to ideological influence. Over the years, some scientists and activists have pointed to studies suggesting too much fluoride might cause bone issues or reduce the IQ. Look at Congress as a prime example. They say that while mild fluoride can protect teeth, nobody checks how much each person consumes daily. The organ might accumulate in the body, leading to unknown side effects. Another angle is that adding anything to the water, even if it's beneficial, will be a personal choice. Once the government controls the water supply, they could quietly raise or lower the fluoride levels to test mind manipulation strategies. Believers claim that fluoride dulls the brain, making people more obedient. They cite anecdotal reports of feeling foggy or less energetic. Some also connect fluoride to the pineal gland, a small part of the brain that sometimes leaks a spiritual and intuitive sense. According to them, fluoride calcifies the pineal gland, reducing free thought and higher awareness. Mainstream scientists generally see these as unproven claims. They note that the levels added to the water are well below the toxicity threshold. Most dental and medical groups say fluoridation is safe in recommended amounts. They point out that community-wide improvements in dental health have been observed in places with fluoridated water. But some regions have ended or reduced fluoridation due to public pressure and new research. Opponents interpret these policy changes as partial admissions that fluoride might be harmful. Supporters see them as political, not scientific choices. Even decades after it began, the debates rages on. Public hearings on water fluoridation can be heated, with one side bringing data about cavity reduction and other side citing long-term harm or moral objections to forced medication. In the conspiracy realm, fluoride is often placed among other chemical control theories, like chemtrails or forced vaccinations. The main difference is that fluoride is openly acknowledged by the governments. The question is whether its real purpose is what officials claim or whether it's a cover for mental suppression. And now we're going to turn to GMOs, genetically modified organisms. They're plants and sometimes animals whose genetic makeup has been changed in a lab to achieve traits like pest resistance and faster growth or better nutritional content. Farmers and biotech companies see GMOs as a way to feed a growing global population, reduce pesticide use, and improve crop yields. Critics worry about ecological impact, corporate control of seeds, and unforeseen health consequences. In conspiracy circles, GMOs take on an even more sinister dimension: mind control or even behavior manipulation. Companies holding patents on GMO seeds can restrict how farmers use them. This has led to fears of a monopoly over the world's food supply. One corporation essentially owns the seeds for a staple crop. People fear it gains power to shape entire nations. And some GMOs are engineered to work in tandem with specific herbicides or pesticides, raising questions about chemical residues in the food. Conspiracy theorists take it further, wondering if these modifications would slip psychoactive substances into the food chain. And then we got the Frankenfood metaphor. Early media coverages sometimes called GMOs Frankenfoods, conjuring up images of unnatural experiments. That language gave rise to speculation about hidden effects on the human brain or personality. Then we've got alleged mechanisms of mind control. That's always right below the surface. Neurochemical pathways. Some claims suggest that altering a crop's genes might let scientists produce or amplify chemicals that affect mood or cognition once eaten. Now, this is rarely supported by research, of course, but so no mainstream biotech product is designed to alter a consumer's neurochemistry. Another idea is that GMOs combined with additives reduce fertility or weaken immune systems, making populations more docile or relying on medical systems. Believers connect this to agendas about population control and profit through healthcare. And a more fringe concept is that GMOs change the body's vibrational state, opening up to electronic or psychological influence, tying in with electromagnetic conspiracies we've talked about before. These individuals suspect GMOs act like antennas for negative signals. Now, there's been a lot of disputed evidence, of course. Animal studies, where critics sometimes cite animal experiments where rodents fed certain GMO diets showed health problems such as tumors or organ damage. A lot of mainstream scientists argue these studies are flawed or haven't been replicated. Large-scale studies of populations that eat GMO foods generally don't show widespread harm. Agencies like the FDA and the EFSA and the WHO say GMOs on the market are safe. Conspiracy believers dismiss these bodies as compromised or ignoring subtle mind effects. And while toxins or hormonal disruptors in food can affect mood or health, no confirmed examples of a gene-edited food designed to manipulate thought has ever surfaced. But the idea still resonates with those suspicious of powerful biotech firms. One major reason GMO mind control theories stick around is that big agribusiness yield considerable political influence. Lobbying, patent battles, and limited labeling laws feed the impression of a system might hide something. And for a lot of folks, the worry is less about actual chemical mind control and more about losing autonomy over what we eat. Some countries ban or even label GMOs, reflecting public caution. In the conspiracy view, these bans might be attempts to resist a larger plan to standardize and drug entire populations. Now, in actuality, these conspiracy theories have connections to other conspiracies. The New World Order, for example. GMO seeds could be a stepping stone to total dependence on a single supply chain. If an organization wanted to reduce personal farming, controlling the seeds would be a key step. Then we have vaccines in the food. The variations, say edible vaccines or trackers, might be engineered into plants. People fear unknowingly ingesting medical treatments or trackers, tying it back to microchip conspiracies. And then, of course, there's always the old standby climate crisis. Some suspect that climate change-induced crop failures have pushed societies to adopt GMOs, which might be the real goal of secret elites, forcing acceptance of specialized seeds that carry mind-affecting traits. Critics label GMO mind control as extreme speculation. They acknowledge legitimate debates over patent law and biodiversity and health, but don't see evidence of hidden psychoactive engineering. Believers respond that secrets don't leave paper trails, and controlling the population so valuable that no expense would be spared. The GMO debate continues in mainstream context, focusing on labeling and safety data and sustainability. And meanwhile, of course, conspiracy discussions go further into fear that through our daily meals we might be ingesting far more than vitamins and minerals. Well, both fluoride suspicion and GMO mind control theories tap into a deeper concern: the vulnerability of everyday life. We rely on municipal water systems and grocery stores. We trust that experts, officials, and companies ensure these resources are safe. And when that trust gets eroded due to past scandals, corporate greed, or legitimate questions about unknown risk, ideas of deliberate population manipulation, of course, flourish. There have been medical betrayals, historical episodes like unethical testing on unsuspecting populations or withholding data on harmful products. They reinforce the notion that official bodies might lie. And then, of course, there's a loss of autonomy. Having no choice but to drink public water, consume widely available produce, can feel like being exposed to whatever the system wants us to have. And most consumers aren't experts in toxicology, genetics, or environmental studies. Complex data can be confusing, leading to reliance on simplified or dramatic claims from advocacy groups. And industries behind water treatment chemicals or GMO seeds are massive. Conspiracy believers see huge profit as a motive for secrecy and wrongdoing. Talking about the fluoride, the official purpose, of course, was to reduce tooth decay by strengthening enamel. It's considered a safe, effective measure by a lot of health agencies. And some believe it's used to keep populations docile or to harm thinking abilities. They cite potential side effects and force medication concerns. And studies show benefits at low levels, but controversies remain about dosage and personal choice and long-term impacts. Mind control claims, of course, are still unproven, but they still persist. And then, of course, in the GMO field, there's been biotech progress. GMOs are engineered for traits like pest resistance and higher yield, and they're regulated but widely used, particularly in certain countries. It's been suggested hidden chemicals or genetic changes could manipulate mood and fertility and even brain function. Large corporations with patents on seed, of course, spark distrust. There's been no solid evidence pointing to direct mind-affecting GMOs. Nevertheless, public unease about safety and ownership and unknown long-term effects do keep the theory alive. And there's been a lot of invisible influences. Both fluoride and GMO concerns revolve around ingesting substances that might change behavior or health in ways we can't easily detect. And the crux lies in whether public officials, corporations, or scientists can be trusted. Incidents of deception in other areas certainly fuel deception here. And of course, there's an impact on daily life. Because water and food are essential, the idea they're manipulated for mind control triggers strong emotions, blending personal autonomy with fear of hidden agendas. And for critics, there's enough oversight and peer review and data to conclude water fluoridation is beneficial at recommended levels, and GMO sold today are generally safe for consumption. They seal conspiracies of mind control that is exaggerated, point to decades of research and real-world use without widespread mental changes. Believers counter that science can be politicized and long-term subtle effects might go unnoticed till it's too late. Well, regardless of your stance on the issues, these topics raise legitimate issues through informed consent, corporate influence, and the complexity of modern life. The question becomes, how do we ensure large-scale public health measures remain transparent and accountable? Well, whether you find the ideas fascinating, worrying, or just simply entertaining, they remind us that human beings crave stories that explain the unexplainable. Well, let's talk about a theory I have came across shortly before, known as the dead internet theory. Late in 2016, a handful of Night Owl network engineers spotted a glitch too orderly to be random. Packet capture plots that normally looked like the ragged skyline of a living city had softened into a uniform parabola, as if millions of distinct voices were collapsing into one choir. Within darknet chat rooms, the anomaly was christened the flicker. On the later would conspiracy circles tie the flicker into a darker creed, that most of the people online weren't people at all. It began on a quiet January night in 2021. An anonymous poster called Doodle David unloaded a 2,000-line screed into a forgotten forum called Agora Rose Macintosh Cafe. Had a very blunt title, Dead Internet Theory. Most of the internet is fake. It announced a claim both cosmic and claustrophobic. According to this post, governments and mega corporations have flooded cyberspace with algorithmic ghosts sometime between 2016 and 2017, reducing real humans into uneasy minority. Living weren't meant to notice, they were meant to scroll and click and buy and obey. Believers began collecting symptoms of the death like botanists categorize poisonous herbs. Started out with looping memes, identical jokes resurfacing every few weeks, posted by accounts that never acknowledged their prior appearance. Vanishing replies, message board threads where half the commenters never returned, as though spun up for a single performance. An algorithmic deja vu. Video recommendations reporting across different user accounts with eerie predictions. And there's isolated islands, of course, subforums boasting millions of subscribers nevertheless felt emptier than a bus station at 3 o'clock in the morning. Each oddity taken alone looked like ordinary internet noise. Taken together, they formed a drumbeat. Something died here. So why pinpoint 2016-17 at the moment of extinction? Well, the adherents point to a wicked trinity. Advertising singularity. Programmatic ad markets rewarded a raw click volume, making bot farms profitable overnight. Political psyops, state-sponsored troll factories proved that scripted personas could tilt elections and fracture societies. And AI content maturity. Early transformer models learned to spit out plausible tweets, comments, and even news articles by the billions. When money and politics and code align, the conspiracy claims genuine chatter becomes an inconvenience. In the dead internet cosmology, the invisible web is a film set run by multi-layered systems known as curators. These are no individual masterminds, just stacks of code executing mandates. State narrative engines nudge geopolitical discourse like invisible hands on a Ouija board. Corporate sentiment modulators scrub timelines of words that might upset advertisers. And attention diviners optimize for dwell time, uncaring whether the onlooker breathes or complies. You log on, you're guided down a plush corridor of custom illusions, and each prop is designed to keep you clicking. The visitors shuffle past you, maybe mannequins in motion. Skeptics argue that measured bot traffic hovers around 50%. That's hardly total replacement, don't you know? Believers counter with two rejoinders. First, bots owned by the same platforms that count them have a little incentive to reveal themselves, and amplification matters more than presence. The minority of synthetic voices, if tuned for maximum virality, can dominate or what everybody sees. In this particular view, the internet corpse still twitches, animated by its parasites. And, of course, scroll any major platform deep into the night and observe ultra-fast replies and eerie perfect grammar, unsolicited emojis that align with brand guidelines, and thumbnails painted with identical pastel gradients. Listen to music playlists stocked with unknown artists whose tracks exist only to sate algorithmic hunger. Collectively, these phenomena make up what's known as the choir, a population of deep learning puppets that hum a constant lullaby so the living never sense the void. Well, if yesterday's propagandists hired humans, today's use code. Theorists describe these primary tactics as a mimetic seeding. Thousands of slogan variants are loosed on the web. The catch is survive and breed. And there's sentiment flooding. During sensitive news cycles, wave after wave of bots either stoke or soothe public outrage with superhuman speed. and is adaptive hyperscaling. Large models monitor trending emotions in real time, generating friendly citizens to reinforce every mood suits the curator's agenda. Now, you don't need a thought police when thought itself can be pre-rendered. And a paradox haunts the theory. The louder the timeline, the lonelier its audience. Users confess to feeling as though they're shouting into an aquarium, watching the watch by glowing fish and never blink. Psychologists have coined the term synthetic solitude for the particular isolation born of suspecting every interlocutor is a mirage. Whether the conspiracy is true or not, its emotional contagion is very real. Whisper networks swap coordinates for refugees believed to be bot-free. Hand-coded forums running decade-old software. Meshnet bulletins accessible only through amateur radio and invitation-only chat rooms that demand voice verification at random hours. Entry often requires rituals, a selfie holding today's newspaper, a real-time video call reciting a string of nonsense syllables, these acts are less about security than about faith, proof that somewhere somebody's lung still moves. Well, conventional academics concede rising automation yet reject total death. They point to stray blogs and hobby wikis and open source repositories thriving under the radar. They argue that fully synthetic traffic cannibalizes ad revenues and that large-scale linguistic analysis that reveals a chaotic human fingerprint. But even these rebuttals admit the same facts. Half the net is automated. Algorithms dictate public reality, and truth is harder to verify each year. For some believers, that's victory enough. Now, there are two milestones revolve the theory's momentum. The API lockdowns, major platforms throttled external access, preventing independent audits of bot activity, and multimodal floods. Consumer-grade AI tools began mass-producing images, videos, and voices indistinguishable from human output. When professional artists started watermarking posts with 100% human-made, many readers interpreted his label not as an authenticity, but as a confession that unmarked content was synthetic by default. On that note, we come to the end of today's show. We'll be back tomorrow and talk more about Is the Internet Dead? Until then, this is Ken Hudnall for the Ken Hudnall Show saying have a truly great evening.